A ceasefire that was supposed to last 3 days in the Middle East didn't even last 3 hours after Hamas killed 2 Israeli soldiers and captured a third. A short while ago, President Obama held a news conference and addressed the crisis. He says it will be difficult to put a deal back together, but the U.S. will keep trying.
I think it's going to be very hard to put a ceasefire back together again if Israelis and the international community can't feel confident that Hamas can follow through on a ceasefire commitment. I think that there's a lot of anger and there's a lot of despair, and that's a volatile mix. But we have to keep trying.
Secretary of State John Kerry has come under fire for his messy diplomacy throughout all of this, but the president is staunchly standing by him.
Let me take this opportunity, by the way, to give Secretary John Kerry credit. He has been persistent. He has worked very hard. He has endured, on many occasions, really unfair criticism. We should all be supporting him. There shouldn't be a bunch of complaints and second guessing about, well, it hasn't happened yet, or nitpicking before he's had a chance to complete his efforts.
Stop the nitpicking, Greg.
So that ceasefire lasted about as long as Alec Baldwin's talk show. But we knew this because we talked about this earlier this week, that ceasefire in Hamas means succor. But what kills me is watching the media grasp the ruse of the ceasefire on other networks. It's like they're discovering that water is wet. If you're surprised that Hamas used a ceasefire to attack, then you must be shocked every time you wake up and see the sun, because everybody knew this was happening. It's crazy.
All right.
It's crazy to be surprised.
So the president sees already that this is a struggle, so it's going to be tough to put a deal back together, but supporting his Secretary of State.
Well, so the Secretary of State has the president's full confidence. The problem is the rest of the world does not. But it's important for the Secretary of State, John Kerry, it was important to him and his credibility for that when he goes back to the table and tries again. It's good for him everybody in the world to know Barack Obama still has confidence in him, and that's really all he needs, at least to keep his job. To be effective, I think that's going to be another question. And in particular, with this ceasefire, you saw yesterday, we broke into this news program, Shepard Smith did, to announce that John Kerry has just announced that there's going to be this ceasefire. And we said, hopefully, we hope that will work, but who actually believes that it's going to? It was almost like this exercise of futility just to do public relations. I think if the White House could possibly do now, the best thing they could do is let Hamas be Hamas and Israel be Israel. Let them fight, stand aside, and do not be complicit in Hamas's ruse and their scheme to call a ceasefire and then to end it and try to pretend in their mind that they are making it worse for Israel. I actually think Hamas is losing the PR battle, far from what the media has said about Israel. I think Hamas is actually losing a lot of ground.
Yeah, well, where's their credibility, Andrea? Because they're the ones that violated ceasefire 5 separate occasions and now have gone to the great lengths to kidnap an Israeli soldier. What that tells me is this situation has just escalated, because now Israel really has no recourse but to destroy Hamas and get their soldier back.
But as Greg pointed out, is this really a surprise? I mean, I think that's what was so troubling today, was watching President Obama. He sounded miffed at Hamas, and he did sound shocked that they actually broke the ceasefire. They're a terrorist organization, and I think what we've seen over the last couple of weeks, Kimberly, is this administration, which in its comments about this conflict legitimizes Hamas. We've heard Nancy Pelosi say that they're a humanitarian organization. Yeah. Jen Psaki at the State Department, with extreme naivete, legitimizing a terrorist organization. Hillary Clinton doing the same, explaining away why they put their missiles in certain areas. They have been bungling this thing from the beginning. And we need to get out of the way. We need to let Israel destroy them. Who cares about the PR war? From the get-go, arguably the United States has made this worse. You could even go back to when the United States of America told Hosni Mubarak to step aside. The Muslim Brotherhood saw its ascendancy. The Muslim Brotherhood is aligned with Hamas. Now, they're not in power anymore, but Kimberly, we've had Gaddafi step aside. We've seen ISIS grow stronger in Syria and now move into Iraq. Right. We have arguably, because U.S. power is receding, allowed for this vacuum to happen and allowed for terrorist organizations like Hamas to get stronger. And by legitimizing them and brokering this ceasefire that we knew was a joke, we actually I think, embolden them to do more because they say, look, the United States treats us like we're a serious organization and not a terrorist organization, which is a huge mistake.
Juan, where do we go from here?
Well, I hope that we go back to, persistence with regard to trying to stop the bloodshed, because I think, I listen to what you guys are saying and I think, wait a second, it's almost, I think it's more than 1,400 Palestinians dead. Not only that, 63 Israeli soldiers. We got this Israeli soldier now that's missing. Again, what do you think that the Hamas people are going to do? They're going to, hold that young man, and it's going to be a terrible situation for the Israelis on the ground.
Try and get another prisoner swap. They got 1,000 last time.
Even though Hamas is a terrorist organization, although I must say they have tremendous support. Obviously, we've seen elections in the Palestinian ranks in Gaza. What we need to do is not say it's just about Hamas and Israel. I think you got to see the larger implications for the region. Charles Krauthammer had an excellent column today talking about how so many of the Arab nations are not supportive of Hamas. That could open a door in terms of what John Kerry is doing to gain support for Israel. Let's do away with all these arguments about Israel's right to exist. Let's move on, get back to the idea of coexistence and some kind of peace. Don't give up. And I certainly would say to you, don't give Israel permission then, because we approve of Israel and they're our allies, to just annihilate all
why
those
not?
people.
They need to destroy Hamas.
No.
This is their
Destroy
opportunity.
Hamas, but
and
people, their children, and their people
We've missed
there.
that opportunity, Juan, to go to those Muslim countries. John Kerry messed that up last
No,
weekend
it didn't. It's
by
not
going
over.
to the wrong Muslim
It's
countries.
not over. This is not.
It is. We missed that.
This is not like a divorce, It's not a divorce.
Greg?
It's worse. No, that was the point I was going to make, that Kerry went to the people that like Hamas.
That's right.
And I think it is refreshing to know that there are Arabs around the world who are disgusted by Hamas. I feel bad for the Palestinians. They're like a family with a horrible thug for a brother. Yep. And it's a brother who keeps inviting trouble back to their house. He's always there drunk. The cops have to keep showing up. That thuggish brother is Hamas. And the family, the Palestinians, pay the price. So I think it's time that, and I agree with Andrea, and I think that in a lot of Arab countries agree, you just let Israel be Israel and get rid of this brother.
Even though there's violence.
Dana, you said that as well.
But there's going to be continued. The problem with ceasefires is that actually extends the suffering because it allows them to reload and kill more people.
Because it's phony. It's phony. These ceasefires are a joke. It's like semantic gymnastics. They don't even understand what ceasefire means. They just laugh all the way. They're like, an hour's passed. Let's
They were joking about it. They were texting Israelis, laughing at them for running.
Yeah. I agree Krauthammer's op-ed was really good. And I agree that the point that he was making, however, Charles's column was a criticism of John Kerry. So what he said was Kerry legitimized Hamas's war criminality, which makes his advocacy of Hamas's terms not just a strategic blunder, enhancing a U.S. designated terrorist group just when a wall-to-wall Arab front wants to get gone, but a moral disgrace. It was a criticism of the policies up to now that has made all of these Arab countries be on the side of the Israelis. Now, perhaps that's an opportunity. And now the president can say, you know what, John Kerry, let's change our tactic. Let's maybe work with them and push behind the Israelis. But I just want to make sure that it's clear that I think the column's great, but it wasn't suggesting that John Kerry has done this with skill.
No. It was critical, but it has opened the door, clearly, this moment where you have the Arab world opposed to Hamas is an opportunity now, I think, to put added pressure on Hamas and to build bonds with Israel that would potentially pay off in a deal.
And not just Hamas, right? There is a change in the global war on terror. It is not just Hamas, but the conflict in Syria with the extremists and then in ISIS. Right. So now,
fear of Iran,
it is
ultimately.
I actually think we are in World War III. It's the global war on terror.
And Dana, if we are, then what is the position and the role of the United States? You have the president admitting that to broker a deal at this point is going to be very difficult, challenging at best. Take a listen to the president claiming that the United States has not lost its influence.
Has the United States of America lost its influence in the world? Have you lost yours?
Yeah. Look, this is a common theme that folks bring up. Apparently, people have forgotten that America, as the most powerful country on earth, still does not control everything around the world.
What are we in charge of or in control of in terms of our foreign diplomacy at this point, Greg?
I don't know. I mean, it's all about leading from behind, and this is what happens. You know, right now there are Jews being attacked all over the world: France, Germany, Austria, and even in Boston, there were a bunch of students that were swarmed. A bunch of Jewish students were swarmed by a mob of screaming bigots. You know, I don't hear the president talking about that, but I also don't hear the media. Instead, I hear the media saying that Israel is losing the media war as they help Israel lose the media war. They are propagandists for pain and trying to broker a deal between Hamas and Israel. Would you broker a deal between an abused woman and her abusive stalker? You wouldn't. You would get rid of the abusive stalker.
You would punish them.
Yeah.
Right, and stop it.
Wait a second. Isn't
like
Israel, I don't think anybody at this table disputes the idea that Israel is by far the superior military power. There is no way Hamas can defeat Israel.
Yeah, but that's faulty logic.
Oh, tell me why.
I'll tell you why. Because just because you're superior militarily doesn't mean you invite attack. Now, I've seen this happen before. There was the guy who runs the Palestinian Center said that Israel's at fault of the broken ceasefire because Israel is far superior. So no matter what happens,
it's always going to be
no matter what happens, it's going to be Israel's fault because they're better at killing than you are.
No, but that's not the argument. The argument would be they are so far superior in terms of military might, they are not at risk of being defeated, that they are in position to exercise some restraint in this situation and help create a peace.
Restraint.
Restraint to 30 underground terror tunnels. How do you exercise restraint when they're digging underneath you?
And
these people are a guerrilla organization, and they play by no rules, and there's nobody making excuses for them.
So that's why you have to eradicate
you can't excuse all the killing. That's
so
the
why
part
is the
that's
president? I mean,
bothering
you could go back to his speech about 67 borders. You could look at him telling Israel they need to have restraint. President Obama, when he answered the question today, and he denies that we've lost influence, I would say we've had the wrong influence. And if you look at all these different horses the U.S. has backed, and I went through Egypt and Syria, we seem to be backing the wrong horse, and we treat Israel like a frenemy. And that's why we've been all over the place. So today, when the president says Israel has a right to defend itself, there's always a caveat there. Israel has a right to defend itself if it uses restraint. Israel's the only country, it seems, that is not allowed to defend itself. It should be able to wipe Hamas off the map. This is its opportunity. It has been patient. It's shown restraint. Enough is enough, and we need to get the heck out of the way so they can do it.
That's for sure. So Netanyahu, there's no doubt about what side he's going to choose, and that's the side of the people of Israel. He's not going to be worried about what the U.S.
Can I mention one other thing?
Yeah.
I know that we probably have to go. There's a report that's probably not going to get enough attention as it should. It was led by former Secretary of Defense William Perry and United States Army General John Abizaid. Basically, they had to look at the military spending and of the last several years, the Obama administration's 4-year defense strategy. They say it lacks funding needed for fulfilling the responsibilities. And then it said the gap is disturbing, if not dangerous, in light of the fact that global threats and challenges are rising. It's a very interesting report that if you're a serious policy person, I think you could take a look at that. And in Washington, hopefully there are some cooler heads that could prevail and come together and say, facing all of these global threats that we've all just talked about, what is the position that we should take in the next budget cycle in order to try to right the ship that we have upended?
And get ahead of it instead of coming from behind. Okay, great idea. Next.